Colorado's economy isn't looking so hot these days. The JBC just came out with its latest economic forecast this month. Things aren't looking so rosy. They're predicting probably about a $700 million budget shortfall again next year because economic growth is slowing, unemployment is rising, all factors that were sort of in the works over the last few years as we've slowly strangled Colorado's economy. And as a result, all of the generous green tax credits just about are about to be halved because the state can't afford to pay them out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of PowerGab, your go-to show for all things energy and environmental policy in the state of Colorado. I'm Jake Fogleman, joined as always by my co-host Amy Cooke. In this week's episode, we want to talk about a pair of recent news articles that at least caught my attention because it speaks to the downside, obvious to maybe folks on our side of the aisle, but I guess not so obvious to the folks in charge of Colorado. The downsides of green industrial policy and regulating your economy out of its recent state of dynamism. I'll give Colorado credit. It's been a very dynamic and prosperous state over the last decade plus. Things are slowing down. And because things are slowing down, it's starting to have a little bit of impact on economic development and incentives. We'll start with the first story about a new factory. It was a battery plant that was supposed to be coming to Brighton. It was much touted. Governor Polis did a big press release about this big $200 million battery factory. It's coming to Brighton and it shows Colorado's green climate economy is going to create jobs and it's going to be a boon to the state. And it turns out this battery factory is no longer coming to the state.
Those who don't learn their history are destined to repeat it. We've been through this,
Oh,
Jake.
yeah.
And this is, I hope I'm saying this correctly. Amprius Technologies in Brighton has announced that it is not moving forward with their battery factory. Now, here, a couple of things just come to mind. And of course, what they're blaming is the fact that Department of Energy is rolling back, money and they want to blame, Trump's to blame for everything. But this happened before. I want to ask the question, if your company can't if you can't open up without $100 million from the Department of Energy or from American taxpayers, maybe maybe there just wasn't a huge market for your product. I don't know. And this is the other thing. Why do companies they keep saying, well, the federal government, we have to have these tax credits for us to move forward and everybody wants our product. No, they don't. Or you wouldn't need the tax credits. And the other thing is, why do you rely on government when you know they're just going to disappoint you?
Right.
I don't I mean, it's the government at best is mercurial. They may or they may not show up when you
Government
need
giveth, the
them.
government taketh
Yeah, that's
away.
exactly right. And when you knew, and the Inflation Reduction Act, we'll call it the Inflation Production Act,
Yeah.
when it was passed, you knew that it was passed with only Democrat votes, and there was a possibility of a changing administration. Plus, all you had to do is look at what was going on in Colorado to know that the economy, the economy has done well under divided government and I would say going back to the early 2000s and before, maybe a little before that. So Bill Owens, and then you had Bill Ritter, and then you had John Hickenlooper. But the key was you had divided government. You didn't have a one party state. So the economy did do well because they did have to compromise. But now you are back to the same thing that happened when a bound solar crashed. And that's why I said those who do not learn their history are destined to repeat it. So a bound solar, for those of you who don't remember or you're new to Colorado, got a $400 million loan guarantee. Think of Solyndra,
Yeah.
Colorado style.
Yep.
It was the Solyndra of Colorado. No, it didn't get 700 million. It only got 400 million. But at the time, Abound Solar's bankruptcy was the largest bankruptcy in Colorado. And it really was I got to tell you, the work of Todd Shepard, who and then the Independence Institute put put billboards up across the street from the Denver Post that said, what was it? Abound Solar lied, jobs died, Denver Post hide, something along those lines, because the Denver Post wouldn't even report on it. I mean, these people misled the United States government, misled uh, uh, Colorado. They misled Weld County commissioners because Weld County commissioners gave them, I think it gave them a property tax break,
Yeah.
something on, and some other tax incentives. But the point being, we've seen this story before. Colorado losing a third major clean energy project as subsidy cuts and tariff royals markets. Well, you know what? You can't survive those things. You're probably not going to survive. But again, my question to Polis and others, this is this is not new.
Right.
There's nothing new about this. We've lived through this movie before, and we were left picking up the pieces then, and we're left doing it now. Why is it that you think you can subsidize your favorite resource or your favorite project and everybody's just going to love it
Right.
and it's all going to work? It they never learn.
It's the
They
fatal
never
it's the
learn.
fatal conceit, as F.A. Hayek famously talked about. Central planners, doesn't matter if they're central planners in the 20th century or central planners in 2025, they think that if they throw enough of your money at something, they can conjure up a competitive industry and high-paying jobs, and everything will be just fine and dandy. You read the subtitle of this Colorado Sun article, which we'll drop in the show notes. I want to touch on that a little bit because, like you said, the crux of this piece tries to tie the closure of this particular factory to Trump's tariffs and the threat of subsidies being withdrawn by the big beautiful bill, which I don't doubt that maybe that played some sort of a role. But to your point, that speaks to the fact that you can't rely on permanent government largesse, because guess what? In America, governments change hands every now and then. But the other thing that tells me it's a little more complicated than that, and it speaks to Colorado, is that the previous two green industrial policy projects that the subtitle alludes to were canceled happened under the Biden administration. So
That's right.
no Trump tariffs to speak of. No, the idea of a Republican majority in both chambers of Congress was not even on anyone's radar at that point. And yet these companies still said that the economic conditions, despite all the subsidies involved in the Inflation Production Act and the infrastructure bill, said, we just can't make this pencil out because despite, all your subsidies, the cost and the technical expertise, we just cannot compete on a global scale with folks that have been doing this for a long time. It's just central planning is central planning. It doesn't matter if Trump's tariffs or Biden trying to be friendly and shovel money at these companies. You can't just will a competitive industry into existence, no matter how much you want to celebrate with a flashy press release. Economics always wins in the end.
That is so true. Markets will always just be markets,
Yep.
and this is a global commodity. If you could force everyone in Colorado to only get batteries from that plant. That plant is all. We could do the New York thing where they're going to have their own grocery stores. It's going to be
Right.
government sponsored grocery
That's
stores.
right.
We'll have government sponsored batteries, and you must buy them from this one plant. It still doesn't mean the economics work.
That's right.
It just doesn't. It just doesn't matter. Polis Polis has been around long enough to know. He was around during Solyndra and Abound Solar.
Yep.
He knows better. But to your point, it's the fatal conceit.
Yep.
It is and that's why it is his ego that is going to keep Colorado from course correcting. Jared Polis, it is simply his ego that, as Dave Thielen said, and also nobody around him is telling him this stuff isn't going to work.
That's right. Every central planner ever always thinks that if they just had the right people in charge
Yeah,
of
right.
putting, oh, that didn't work because we didn't have the right experts in charge of planning every individual outcome. But like I said, we'll drop this one in the show notes. I think it's worth everyone's time because this is a trend we're seeing not only in Colorado, but in states nationwide. Companies pulling back on EV factories and battery factories and solar factories, et cetera, because, no matter how many tax credits you give them, sometimes the economics just don't pencil out. But speaking of economics, the other story from the Colorado Sun we did want to talk about uh, is another topic near and dear to our heart. It's related because it's these generous subsidies we're talking about, not for companies this time, but for the Colorado consumer. But because of maybe central planning and a little bit of an over reliance on that at the state level, Colorado's economy isn't looking so hot these days. The JBC just came out with its latest economic forecast this month. Things aren't looking so rosy. They're predicting probably about a $700 million budget shortfall again next year because economic growth is slowing, unemployment is rising, all factors that were sort of in the works over the last few years as we've slowly strangled Colorado's economy. And as a result, all of the generous green tax credits just about are about to be halved because the state can't afford to pay them out.
So, in other words, the state can't afford to pay uh, i- i- rich people to get their second or third vehicle. Can't afford to give them, what was it, $5,000 last
Yeah, in
year,
2024 it was 5 grand.
5,000, and then it went to 3,500. And just so this is electric and plug-in hybrid cars, have to be less than 80,000. The original 2026 amount was gonna be $1,500. The updated amount is 750.
Yep.
And then light duty trucks, 1,500 to 750. Oh, I'm really sad about this one, e-bikes. Yeah, I have a pet peeve with that because as a cyclist and a bit of a purist, and you know what, in this case, a little bit of an elitist. Yeah, the e-bikes, I think you're cheating. I get it. Some people, for some of you all, it's the only way to do it. I get it. You want to be out on a bike and everything else, but the original 2026 rebate for that was 500. That's going to 20 or 500 is going to $250. And water heater heat pumps, $125 next year. That's what your rebate is.
Yep.
You can't even, probably won't even pay the tax on it. But the the point being, Colorado's central planners, and they won't admit that they're wrong.
Right.
Um, the Colorado central planners have driven the economy, just have tanked it, and so as a result, they can't they can't lavish EV EV rebates on rich wealthy people from Boulder to get their second or third EV. You're going to have to pay for the whole thing yourself. But here's my, and I'll go back to like the last story where we said, have you not learned that government you don't rely on government? Just don't.
That's
Stop
right.
doing that. I'd say the same thing to the auto dealers. Don't think that government was going to be there forever to lavish rebates on customers, because like you said, it would, if whatever government gives, it can take away. So if you built your business model around rebates and consumers coming in to buy EVs because of rebates, that's on you. Like that, I mean, I'm sorry, but I actually wait till the fire sale and then you can get your EV for cheap, I guess.
Yeah. That to me, I mean, there's a couple of dimensions going on here. One, what this really is some policy goals cannibalizing other policy goals, right? The state has made a concerted effort to increase the regulations, make businesses harder to run and start. As a result, economic activity is slowing. It's not just here, to be fair. Nationally, you've seen some red flags too, but Colorado's unemployment rate, for instance, is higher than the national average when that hasn't been the case for the last 25 years or so. So clearly, there's some unique Colorado factors going on, and I think that's directly related to policy. But as a result, that's cannibalizing some of their other policy goals, which is to shovel money at these preferred green technologies, heat pumps, EVs, e-bikes, and the like, um, which to me is good news. Obviously, you don't want the economy to slow down because that's bad for people. But these tax credits, quite frankly, shouldn't exist in the first place.
The
And so any diminishment in their availability is great. Like you said, why should the average Colorado taxpayer be helping to fund the second or third vehicle for a rich Boulderite, or the brand new zero cold weather heat pump for someone that can afford to strip out their natural gas furnace and
and
totally redo their house and install that? Folks, you can do this on your own if you have the desire. It's a free state, it's a free country. If you have the desire to electrify, whether it's transportation or your home heating, by all means, more power to you. But you should not expect the average taxpayer of Colorado to help you fund that endeavor.
no, no, buy whatever you want,
Yeah.
but this administration, this particular, you know, the party in charge, picking obviously picking winners and losers.
Yep.
And it's a bad business model. If your business relies on that, that's a bad business model because I got to tell you, here's the other thing: $700 million is what they're looking at the shortfall.
Yep.
700. What was it? $1 billion this year?
Yeah, about 1.2.
700 million. It was interesting to me, and this is what is sad to me. Having come back after being gone for 4.5 years, the spiral, the downward spiral of Colorado is very, very real, and it is more real if you've been gone and then come back and see it. Because I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, what has happened here? But I was talking to somebody. I came flying back from DC, and I was talking to somebody who, you know, do you live? I said, yeah, I live in Colorado. And she goes, oh gosh, we love Colorado. We love visiting it. She goes, but we haven't really been recently. I said, oh, why is that? She goes, I don't know. It doesn't seem to have much of a vibe anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that's going to be a hard perception to change. This is uh, unless they course correct economically, we're going to see more of
Yeah,
this.
just to echo that, I had a crash course in that myself. I'm used to traveling around the country. People ask where you're from. You say, oh, Colorado. And for the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, every time I'd say that, people are like, oh, that's amazing. I've always wanted to live in Colorado. What a beautiful state. What a great state to live in. Just recently, I went to Tennessee on a little bit of a trip, and multiple people I talked to, when I brought that up, they said, oh, the
Yeah.
reaction was completely different. It was my first time ever realizing, oh, the reputation of this state has completely changed across the country, where folks just say, oh, Colorado,
Yeah.
you should move out here.
Yeah, tough place, isn't it? And you go, yeah, yeah, no, you're not wrong, and that is hard to
Yeah,
change. So you get that vibe for being or you get that reputation for being a vibrant state, a state that's open to business, a state where people want to come and experience it. And now, and we had that, by the way, for a long time,
absolutely.
and we enjoyed it. I mean, it was great. Now, those that it's in the southeast.
Yeah,
It's let's put it this way, it's in a whole bunch of other states besides Colorado. So while we talk about energy here and we talk about energy all the time because it's in everything and it's one of the drivers, think about this. Um, Part of for instance, why the states why just the bill for running state government and any government is going to go up is increasing. It's because their energy costs are increasing.
yep,
So that is less that they can then lavish on some wealthy Boulderite to get their second or third vehicle. There are other tax credits in there in the budget that may be yanked, and it
yeah.
won't be just EV tax credits. It'll be things. It'll be for things that are far more serious.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. The piece we haven't touched on yet is the Tabor piece of that. Because, like you said, a lot of these tax credits, almost all of them, in fact, rely on there being a Tabor surplus. That's another reason why these tax credits in the first place are so objectionable, because you're stealing money that should be refunded to all
Right.
taxpayers to funnel them towards these special interests, the wealthy Boulderite, for instance. But like you said, yeah, those other tax credits that aren't necessarily green related are also, quite frankly, on the chopping block. And what worries me about all of this is that mentioned course correction. I do worry that the lesson they're going to learn is, oh, it's Tabor's fault, because
Uh,
that's always what they go to, is that, if Tabor wasn't there, we could have our cake and we could eat it too. So uh, I am holding out hope that maybe this winnowing of tax credits and other corporate welfare and special interest tax benefits stay slashed, and we plug our budget holes by cutting spending. But I have a just a terrible feeling that that is not going to be the lesson that is learned, unfortunately, for the rest of the state. I don't know if you have anything else, or I can kick it to you for takeaways on this
Yeah,
topic, Amy.
I don't. I mean, this is I guess what I would say is this is to be continued.
Yeah.
We're gonna see more of this. Um, I will actually I do have one more thing. So there's this thought that I've got to run out and get my EV now.
Yeah.
Because before the tax credits expire, and you're not I mean, you're not wrong on that in the sense that the federal level could very well expire under one big beautiful bill. Whether or not you think that's beautiful is, I guess, in the eye of the beholder. But those tax credits are eventually going to go away. So yes, if you want to take advantage of tax credits, you should do it in 2025. That being said, there is potential that there's a huge glut of EVs at the end of 2025, in which case there could be a fire sale and you could get them. You don't have to worry about the tax credit. You'll just get a far lower price.
Yeah.
So, takeaways, don't make government incentives part of your business model. Just or part of your purchasing. It if that's the way you're planning, you're going to be disappointed. That's number one. Number two, I'm gonna reiterate something that Jake said, and that is it's not Tabor's fault. So when you hear that it's Tabor's fault, it's not. Tabor's not to blame. This is central planning yet again. So don't fall for that. And three, get your generator. It could be your EV. You could use it as part of firming your grid, whatever that needs to look like. But be sure to get a generator and firm your grid, because the disappointment in government is very real and it's profound, and they're not going to save you from an unreliable grid. So you have to save yourself.
Yeah, it's unfortunately likely to continue, I
Yes.
think. That does it for us here on another episode of PowerGab. If you like what you saw, you can head over to powergab.org to check out our entire back catalog. We produce new episodes every single week. We're also available wherever you get your audio shows, whether that's Spotify or Apple. And if you want to reach out to us to suggest future show topics or guests you'd like to see us interview, you can send those our way at info@powergab.org. We always love hearing from you guys. But until next week, we'll see you.